get the illicit fentanyl out of the country.
The insurance industry.
Something few people have looked at, and a problem the media is apparently blind to, is the role that medical insurers play in the diversion and abuse of legitimate pain medication. Medical insurance is the last step before a patient receives tests, medications, medical devices, or therapies that a doctor prescribed. Many times the best option for the patient is denied by insurance, and the physician has to go back to the drawing board. The facts show that medical insurers are dictating how doctors treat patients, and they're doing it through the power of the purse. Care is focused on cost, not quality, and that is a major problem in this country. Michael J. Cawley, professor of clinical pharmacy at the Philadelphia College of Pharmacy, University of the Sciences, addressed this issue on the Managed Healthcare Connect website on July 19, 2018. In addition to Big Pharma, insurance companies also have a major responsibility for the overprescribing of opioids. Many insurance companies deny claims for non-opioid substitutes for patients with pain. Many physicians realize there are other alternatives that can be prescribed, but insurance companies deny these claims, fueling the opioid crisis. Morphine, fentanyl, and oxycodone are much cheaper than the alternatives. In addition, insurance companies use evidence-based medicine and state there is limited evidence that abuse-deterrent opioids are effective. Insurers don't look at treating patients from a standpoint of preventing possible addiction, or even the most cost-effective methods to successfully treat the patient's pain. They only care about the cheapest option. Because of this, physicians are not only tied to their prescription pad, but tied to a limited amount of medications in their arsenal that will be covered by insurance.
Additional influences on doctors and the medicines they prescribe.
Doctors are paid hundreds of millions of dollars every year by Big Pharma. Some doctors are paid as much as $300,000 a year by these pharmaceutical companies. Perfectly legal payments that are not required to be reported to the physician's patients or the public. This alone can definitely influence the types of medications and non-medicine based treatments a physician utilizes or decides not to use. Once again, it's not about patient care, it's about greed. It's about the bottom line. It's about pushing more drugs out into society and getting paid for it. It's ridiculous. Alright, so we've covered a lot in this episode, so I'm going to stop here. Before I let you go, let's review. As a culture, we are addicted to taking drugs of all types. Period. More American adults regularly take a prescription medication, not to mention over-the-counter drugs and supplements, than those who do not. A great deal of Americans are taking 5 drugs or more, especially the elderly and those living with chronic conditions such as intractable pain. The problem is, your doctor may not like you asking about non-drug alternatives because many are paid kickbacks from Big Pharma. They also make big money on the drugs they dispense in their clinics because of wholesale markups and volume discounts. And many are stuck in an old way of thinking and therefore tied to their prescription pad. By covering some drugs, not covering others, and categorizing drugs into classes that each carry a higher cost to the patient, insurers influence how medications are prescribed based on the patient's financial limitations and the denial of their claims. Lower-income patients have less options despite paying a much higher percentage of their annual income for medical insurance. Unfortunately, these factors alone create a problematic situation where patient care is more about cost and profit than the best options for the patient. Add into that over 100 years of bullying by the federal government over opioids, and we move from a problematic situation to a crisis for the tens of millions of people in chronic pain. Man, it's a mess. We live in a culture where over 100,000 patients die each year from adverse drug reactions. 25% of older adults are on 5 prescription drugs or more, and the federal government is only focused on legitimate opioids because of 5,000 fatal overdoses per year. The point of this episode was to encourage listeners to question their doctors and question the medications they are taking. Look, I know, as chronic pain patients, we are conditioned to fear our doctors. We don't question them. We don't want to piss them off or hurt their ego by questioning their expertise because we are all teetering between being seen as an actual patient or being seen as a drug seeker. And the way we are viewed by modern medicine can change in an instant. On the other hand, do you really want to join the 100,000 plus Americans who die every year from polypharmacy and adverse drug reactions? If not, then we have to ask the hard questions. Even listeners who must take long-term opioids should explore non-opioid and non-drug alternatives. Medicine is always advancing. Don't get stuck in the same way of thinking. Always look for a new alternative. Always look to better your care. Because if alternatives are discovered, the patient will no longer be under the thumb of their doctors because of opioids. Or at minimum, they will continue to improve their quality of life with less pain medication and less medications in general. It's time we handled this differently, and the epidemic was addressed without creating yet another crisis. We have to ask ourselves why. Why is the federal government hell-bent on attacking pain patients, the medical community, and the pharmaceutical industry? Why? That question will be answered in the next episode when we talk about the Harrison Anti-Narcotic Tax Act of 1914 and the racism that is deeply embedded into this nation's war on drugs. Until then, stay well, question your doctors, get second opinions, question your medications, and look for viable non-drug alternatives. I will help with that as much as possible in future episodes. Thank you for listening, and see you next episode. This episode was a Melanie Martin production. It was researched, written, produced, engineered, and hosted by Timothy J. Miller. Rate and review this podcast on your listening app of choice, and visit us at facebook.com/The Chronic Pain Survival Guide, on Twitter at A Chronic Pain Pod, on Spreaker at spreaker.com, and search the shows for the keywords chronic pain, and finally on Patreon, patreon.com/chronic pain.
Introduction music thanks to Moby via mobygratis.com. For more information about the music used in this production, please refer to the transcript of this episode found at patreon.com/chronic pain, or on Spreaker.com and search the podcasts for the keyword chronic pain.